read the last part of Viking Ships at Sunrise, chapter 9 and 10. Sea Monster. The serpent's head rose higher and higher above the water. Jack couldn't move. He's beautiful, said Annie. Beautiful, cried Jack. The serpent's neck was as tall as a two-story building. Its green scales were covered with sea slime. Go away, shouted Jack. No, stay, help us, shouted Annie. The great serpent glided closer to the ship. Jack ducked. Come on, said Annie. You can do it. Get us to shore before the ship sinks. Jack closed his eyes. He felt the ship jerk, then move forward. He looked up. They were gliding over the giant waves. Jack turned. The great serpent was pressing its long neck against the back of the ship, pushing it toward the shore. As the serpent pushed them, the wind grew calmer. The clouds lifted, and the water glittered with sunlight. The rocky shore grew closer. Jack could see the treehouse on the ledge above it. Hurry, Annie called to the serpent monster. The great serpent gave the ship one last push. The ship swooshed onto a sandbar near the shore. Jack put the jeweled book carefully back into his bag. Then he and Annie climbed out of the ship into the wet sand. They looked back at the sea. The giant serpent was rearing its long neck into the air. Its scales glittered pink and green in the sunlight. Bye, shouted Annie. Thanks a lot. The monster seemed to nod at her. Then he dove into the sea and was gone. Jack and Annie headed toward the rocks. All of a sudden, Annie gasped. Uh-oh, she said, pointing to the top of the cliff. Two Vikings were staring down at them. To the treehouse, cried Jack. The Vikings shouted and started down the steep stairs. Jack and Annie began scrambling up the rocks. They reached the treehouse and climbed inside. Jack grabbed the Pennsylvania book. Annie stuck her head out the window. Go home, stop causing trouble, she yelled to the Vikings, who were almost to the ledge. Jack pointed at the picture of the Frog Creek woods. I wish we could go there, shouted Jack. Just as the Vikings reached the ledge, the wind began to blow. The treehouse started to spin. It spun faster and faster. Then everything was still. Absolutely still. Chapter 10, Sunrise. Boy, I'm glad to be back in my jeans, said Annie. Jack opened his eyes. He still felt damp, but he was glad to be wearing his jeans again, too. Welcome home, said Morgan. She was standing in the shadows. Are you all right? Of course, piped Annie. And we brought back the lost book, said Jack. He reached in his backpack and took out the jeweled book of Brother Michael. He handed it to Morgan. The enchantress sighed. She ran her hand over the sparkling cover. A great work of art, she said. Morgan then put the book next to the scroll from Roman times and the bamboo book from ancient China. I'm afraid the story you wanted is not all there, said Jack. Brother Michael didn't get the chance to finish it. Morgan nodded. I know, she said. Sadly, we have only bits and pieces of many wonderful old stories. What's the story about? Asked Annie. It's an ancient Irish tale about a great serpent named Zarf, said Morgan. He saved us by pushing our ship over the stormy waves, Annie said. Zarf was a huge, ugly monster, said Jack. Morgan smiled. Sometimes monsters can be heroes, she said. What about Vikings? Asked Jack. Oh, most definitely. Vikings could be heroes too, she said. In fact, once the Vikings settled down, they became more than just a warrior people. They actually added a lot to civilization. We found civilization on our trip, said Annie. Yeah, said Jack. In the library of the monastery. Morgan smiled again. Their library was a light in the dark ages, wasn't it? She said. Jack nodded. He thought of Brother Michael and the other monks making their beautiful books by candlelight. Thank you also for your great courage, Morgan said. You are both heroes, too. Jack smiled shyly. Go home now and rest, said Morgan. Bye, Jack and Annie said together. They started down the treehouse ladder. The sky was turning pink and gold. When they reached the ground, Morgan called out to them. Come back in 2 weeks. I need you to find one more lost book. Where is it? Said Jack. Ancient Greece, said Morgan. A place with the highest civilization and the first Olympic Games. Oh, wow, said Annie. Jack was thrilled. He had always wanted to go to ancient Greece. Jack and Annie took off through the woods. The sun was rising when they got to their front porch. Annie opened the front door. She stuck her head inside and listened. Everything's quiet, she whispered. I think Mom and Dad are still sleeping. She moved quietly inside. Jack turned back to watch the red sun rise through a clear blue sky. He thought about how it was the same sun that had risen in Ireland over 1,000 years ago. Shine, O light of the sun, Jack whispered, on this day filled with wonder. Then he slipped inside his quiet house. Thanks for listening.